The Arctic night enveloped the world in a suffocating shroud, a desolate expanse where the cold was not merely a sensation but a predatory force, gnawing at the marrow with a relentless ferocity that defied human endurance. It was 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, June 17, 2025, though the date felt irrelevant in this timeless void, when the alarm shattered the oppressive silence, a shrill, mechanical wail that tore me from the fragile remnants of a dream I could no longer reclaim. The dream had been a fleeting oasis of warmth and light, perhaps a memory of a childhood summer long buried beneath layers of ice and duty, now obliterated by the chaos erupting around me. The green digits of my watch glowed faintly in the pitch-black barracks, casting an eerie luminescence across the scene. 30 soldiers stumbling over creaking bunks, their heavy boots clanging against the rusted metal floor, their breaths forming ghostly plumes that hung momentarily before dissipating into the frigid air. For 2 grueling years, I had endured this remote Greenland outpost, a forsaken speck in the island's icy heart, where drills were a daylight ritual, meticulously timed to avoid the lethal -40°C darkness that could claim exposed flesh in a matter of minutes, turning it brittle and black. Nighttime alarms were an aberration, a rupture in the grim routine we had forged with this frozen purgatory, a pact that promised survival through predictability. My heart hammered against my ribcage, a frantic drumbeat, as I swung my legs over the bunk's edge, the icy metal searing my skin through the thin undershirt I wore, a stark reminder of the hostile wilderness awaiting beyond the thin, insulated walls. Captain Mitchell's voice crackled through the intercom, a rare quiver threading beneath his usual granite resolve, the static adding a layer of distortion that amplified the urgency. All personnel, full winter gear, outside in 5 minutes. This is not a drill. The words landed like a physical blow, their weight sinking into my chest, the crackle of the speaker and the faint tremor in his tone, a stark departure from the unflappable professionalism I had come to rely upon. Mitchell was our cornerstone, a man who had navigated us through blizzards that buried equipment, medical emergencies that tested our limited resources, and months of isolation that frayed the strongest minds, all with a steady hand and a voice that never rose unless the situation demanded it. Yet tonight, an edge laced his command, a jagged whisper of dread that infected the barracks, spreading like frost across the metal walls. My stomach churned as I processed the order, the implications unfolding in my mind with a clarity that chilled me more than the Arctic air. Around me, men scrambled with a blend of instinct and desperation, yanking thermal layers from lockers with trembling fingers, tugging on wool socks that scratched against frostbitten skin, layering insulated pants and heavy jackets with a haste that defied the meticulous care usually required to ward off the cold's deadly embrace. Dressing for Arctic conditions was a 10-minute ritual, a choreography of survival honed over countless mornings. But tonight we slashed corners, driven by the unspoken certainty that whatever had triggered this alarm brooked no delay, no allowance for perfection. The thermometer outside hovered at -40°C, a number I checked nightly with the same ritualistic dread, knowing that exposed skin would freeze solid in less than 2 minutes, the flesh cracking like porcelain, and even the full array of gear offered only a fragile shield against prolonged exposure, where hypothermia could creep in unnoticed. Mitchell's order to face this killer cold in the dead of night, at 10:22 a.m. +07 on this distant Tuesday, was a siren call to something catastrophically wrong, a summons to confront a terror that lurked beyond the horizon. I joined the exodus, my boots crunching on the metal grating with a sound that echoed like breaking ice, as we poured into the courtyard, a tide of shadowed figures merging with the boundless night. The cold hit like a sledgehammer, a visceral force that stole my breath and stung my eyes with invisible needles, even through the cocoon of layers I had hastily donned. My exhalations billowed in thick white clouds, lingering briefly like the last gasps of a dying man before dissolving into the stillness, a fleeting testament to the life within me against the deathly expanse. I scanned the faces lit by the compound's harsh exterior lights, veterans of this frozen hell, not green recruits prone to hysteria, their features etched with the wear of a year or more in this icy crucible. Their expressions mirrored my own. Confusion furrowed brows into deep creases, tension tightened jawlines into rigid lines, a collective unease that transcended words, a silent communion of dread. Daniel Ramsey stood 10 feet to my left, his youthful face pale and taut beneath the hood of his jacket. His hands shaking as he fumbled with his zipper, the metal slipping through his frost-numbed fingers. The kid was a bundle of nerves, always on edge, his wide eyes darting to the shadows between buildings as if the darkness itself might birth a nightmare. His breath coming in short, rapid puffs that clouded around him like a shroud. 15 feet to my right, Carl Jensen whispered urgently to a comrade. His voice a low hum lost beneath the crunch of boots and the murmur of bewildered voices. The other soldier shaking his head in a futile search for answers, his gloved hands clenching and unclenching in frustration. No one knew why we stood here, yet the air thrummed with a primal awareness, a sixth sense that the night held secrets we were not meant to uncover, a presence that watched from the void above. Captain Mitchell waited in the courtyard's center, a solitary sentinel in his regulation gear, his posture rigid with an intensity that eclipsed his usual commanding presence. At 6 feet tall, with a frame honed by decades of service, his broad shoulders and steady stance commanded respect, but tonight his rigidity carried an almost palpable weight. His eyes flicking upward to the star-strewn sky with a frequency that sent a shiver down my spine, a movement that suggested he sought answers in the celestial expanse. "Formation now," he barked, his voice cutting through the thin, frigid air like a blade, its clarity a lifeline amidst the growing chaos. We fell into neat rows, muscle memory guiding our movements where confusion might have faltered. 37 soldiers standing at attention beneath the Arctic vault, our breaths synchronizing into a rhythmic cloud. The cold seeped through my boots, a creeping numbness that tightened the skin on my cheeks as moisture froze into a brittle mask, but my gaze remained fixed on Mitchell. 2 years under his command had revealed a man of unshakable resolve. Calm through supply shortages that left us rationing crumbs, composed during medical crises where a single mistake could cost a life. His voice never rising unless the situation demanded it, a beacon of stability in a sea of uncertainty. Yet tonight, his every gesture, sharp, precise, jaw clenched beneath the cold weather gear, hinted at a burden that transcended routine, a weight that bent even his iron will. His eyes, usually steady pools of authority, kept darting to the heavens, and I followed, tilting my head back to confront the crystalline expanse above, my neck protesting the angle, my breath catching as I braced for the unknown. The Arctic sky unfolded in breathtaking clarity, a tapestry of stars unmarred by the glow of civilization. The Milky Way, a luminous river cutting across the void, its milky tendrils weaving a path through the darkness. The absence of light pollution revealed a cosmos more brilliant than any I had witnessed back home, each pinpoint a testament to the isolation that defined our existence, a reminder of how far we were from the warmth of human habitation. But something was amiss, a discordance that prickled the hairs on my neck. Mitchell raised his arm, his gloved hand pointing to a section directly overhead, the gesture deliberate, almost reverent. "Look there. Tell me what you see." I squinted through the stinging cold, my eyes watering as they adjusted to the relentless chill, the tears freezing on my lashes, blurring my vision momentarily. At first, I saw only the expected scatter of stars, a familiar constellation winking back at me, then a void, a vast oval absence where constellations should have gleamed, a black hole in the fabric of the night. Not clouds obscuring the view, their soft edges a familiar sight in this climate. Not atmospheric distortion that might bend light in strange ways, but a gaping nothingness that swallowed light, its edges blurring into the starfield, defying any attempt to trace its boundaries with precision. The scale was staggering, a presence that blocked entire swaths of the night sky, suggesting a mass beyond human comprehension, a shadow cast by something immense and unknowable. A low buzzing descended, faint at first, like the hum of distant machinery carried on the wind, then growing into a deep vibration that traveled through the frozen ground and into my bones, a resonance that set my teeth on edge, forcing my jaw to clench against the ache. "Nobody moves," Mitchell ordered, his voice a lifeline in the rising dread, its authority a tether to sanity. "Nobody speaks unless I give direct orders. No weapons, no sudden movements. Do not look away." The buzzing intensified, a sound that seemed to emanate from the fabric of the universe itself. A low-frequency thrum that vibrated through the steel in my boots and into the marrow of my legs, as if the earth itself were alive with its pulse. The object, whatever it was, began a slow, deliberate rotation, its movement almost imperceptible at first, then revealing and concealing portions of the sky in a measured dance that shattered any hope of dismissing it as an optical trick or natural phenomenon. Stars winked in and out of view, their light extinguished and reborn in a rhythm that suggested intent, a choreography of the cosmos disrupted by an intruder. Minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity, my feet numbing in my boots, the cold biting deeper as moisture froze on my exposed skin around my mouth and nose, forming a brittle crust that cracked with each breath. The physical torment was brutal, a relentless assault that threatened to sap my strength, but the entity above held my gaze captive, its presence a weight on my soul, a gravitational pull that defied explanation. To my left, Daniel's breathing grew ragged, white clouds erupting in sharp, uneven gasps, his young frame buckling under an unseen terror, his hood slipping to reveal eyes wide with panic. 15 feet to my right, Cal shifted his weight, tiny, almost imperceptible movements betraying his rising panic, his nervous energy a counterpoint to Daniel's frozen fear, his gloved hands clenching the strap of his rifle as if it were a lifeline. The buzzing seeped into my skull, vibrating through my bones, a sensation that begged for escape. Cover my ears, step away, flee into the night, but Mitchell's presence, a statue of authority amidst the chaos, anchored us, his silhouette a dark promise of order. 20 minutes ticked by according to my watch, though it felt like hours, the hands moving with a sluggishness that mocked time's passage. My face numb, fingers losing sensation despite my insulated gloves, the cold seeping into joints I hadn't known could ache. The psychological strain eclipsed the physical, standing motionless beneath an impossibility, every instinct screaming for fight or flight, suppressed only by the iron discipline drilled into us over years of training and Mitchell's unwavering command. His voice a distant echo in the storm of my thoughts. Daniel's quiet sobs broke through the hum, muffled yet unmistakable, a sound of a mind unraveling under pressures no human should endure. His shoulders shook, tears freezing into crystalline tracks on his cheeks, his gasps turning to hyperventilation as he neared collapse, his breath a white fog that enveloped him like a spectral shroud. The entity's rotation revealed new facets of its underside, darker patches and subtle variations in light absorption hinting at a surface both organic and mechanical. Its texture a mosaic of shadows that suggested life, its size stretching miles across. A structure no human engineering could rival, no natural phenomenon could explain, a colossus that dwarfed the compound beneath it. Other soldiers began to fidget, subtle shifts in posture, the kind of restless movement that signaled the limits of human endurance, their boots scuffing the frozen ground, their breaths quickening in unison. The buzzing pulsed, deepening for seconds before resuming its steady hum, each wave shaking the ground beneath us, a reminder that the technology defying gravity was beyond our wildest imaginings, a science that mocked the limits of physics as we understood it. Daniel's breakdown accelerated, his sobs growing audible, a raw edge to his breathing that spoke of a terror too vast to contain, his voice breaking into a whimper that carried across the courtyard. I wanted to reach out, to offer a word of comfort, to steady the kid who had become a brother in this frozen exile, but Mitchell's order for silence held firm, a chain binding us to our posts, a command etched in the ice of his authority. Another pulse rattled the barracks windows, a sharp crack that echoed in the stillness, the glass trembling in its frames, and Daniel screamed, a raw, guttural sound that tore from his throat, a cry of a soul breaking under the weight of the unknown. He stumbled backward, breaking formation, his legs giving way beneath him, his knees hitting the concrete with a dull thud that reverberated through the frozen air. No, 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 he choked out, his voice cracking. I can't do this. It's going to kill us all. Instinct surged, a primal urge to protect that overrode the paralysis of fear. I lunged forward, my boots slipping on the icy ground, grabbing his left arm with a grip strengthened by adrenaline as 3 others joined me, forming a human barrier around the collapsing soldier. Hold him steady, Mitchell hissed, his authority a razor through Daniel's panic, his voice carrying the weight of command that had kept us alive through blizzards and breakdowns, a tone that cut through the fog of terror. But the kid thrashed, his strength fueled by a primal fear, his winter gear making him slippery and hard to control, the thick fabric sliding through my gloved hands, his sobs dissolving into wordless cries that rose like a lament into the night. "Let me go! I have to get away!" he gasped, his voice a plea lost to the wind, his eyes wild with a desperation I had never seen in him. Another pulse hit, stronger than before, the vibration traveling up through my teeth and ribs, the buildings groaning in protest, metal creaking under the strain, the sound a symphony of impending collapse. "It knows we're here," Daniel whispered, his voice a fractured whisper. "It's looking at us." His words a confession of a truth we all felt but dared not voice. The pulses continued, every 10 seconds a seismic wave, loosening my grip as the ground shook, my hands struggling to maintain pressure against the relentless tremor, the cold biting deeper into my joints. Mitchell's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching beneath the frost on his face, his control teetering as 37 soldiers stood beneath a city-sized enigma, one of their own unraveling before our eyes, a microcosm of the chaos threatening to consume us all. Daniel twisted hard, his body a coiled spring of panic, nearly pulling free from the soldier on his right, his momentum carrying him toward escape with a force that belied his slight frame. His breathing turned to short, panicked gasps, oxygen-starved and desperate, his chest heaving beneath the layers, his body teetering on the edge of collapse, his face a mask of terror illuminated by the compound's lights. I tightened my hold, my muscles straining against the cold, but the constant shaking made it nearly impossible to keep steady. My fingers numb within the gloves, my grip faltering with each pulse. "I can't breathe," he wheezed, his voice a rasp. "It's in my head. The sound is in my head and I can't make it stop." His words a plea to a universe that offered no mercy. Another pulse struck, stronger still, rattling loose equipment in the maintenance shed. A metallic crash punctuating the chaos, the sound of a wrench or tool clattering to the floor a stark reminder of our vulnerability. His knees buckled, his weight sagging against us, but we kept him upright, for grown men struggling to contain one terrified soldier who had reached his breaking point, our breaths synchronizing in a desperate rhythm. That's when he broke free. Daniel yanked his right arm away with a sudden jerk, spinning toward his left, his momentum carrying him out of our grasp, the fabric of his sleeve slipping through my fingers like water. He stumbled but stayed on his feet, backing away, his hands raised as if we were the threat, his palms trembling in the dim light. "Stay back!" he shouted, his voice raw from crying, his fingers fumbling with the safety strap on his holster, the leather creaking under his frantic movements. We froze, the air thickening with a new dread, a silence that pressed against my eardrums as the implications sank in. He drew his weapon, the metallic click of the safety releasing impossibly loud in the cold stillness, a sound that seemed to reverberate off the ice-covered buildings, amplifying our collective fear. His arms trembled violently, the barrel wavering as he aimed at the entity above, the muzzle glinting under the compound lights, a futile gesture against the incomprehensible. "Soldier, stand down," Mitchell barked, his face flashing with alarm, the first crack in his composure, his eyes narrowing as he stepped forward, his boots crunching the ice. But Daniel was beyond reason, his mind a battlefield of terror and resolve. "I won't let it take me," he said, his voice steady for the first time, a resolve born of desperation, his finger tightening on the trigger. He fired 3 shots, muzzle flashes illuminating his tear-streaked face, the cracks rebounding off the buildings in a staccato burst that shattered the night. The tracers arced upward, 3 small points of light against the void, vanishing into the darkness, swallowed by the incomprehensible mass, their paths erased as if they had never existed. The gentle buzzing exploded into a roar, a sound that split my skull, driving me to my knees with a force that buckled my legs, the pain lancing through my head and spine like 1,000 needles. My hands clapped over my ears in a futile gesture, the vibration invading my bones, a resonance that blurred the line between sound and sensation, my vision swimming as the ground trembled violently. Cracks spidered across the concrete, a web of destruction spreading from my knees, buildings swaying as glass shattered, the shards raining down like icy tears. Daniel rose, his feet lifting off the ground, his body twisting at unnatural angles, his limbs contorted as if manipulated by invisible hands. "Help me!" he cried, his voice fading into the roar, a plea lost to the wind as he ascended into the void. Kyle followed, lifted without warning, his boots leaving the concrete with a soft thud, his face a mask of shock and silent terror, his mouth open in a scream that was swallowed by the noise. Both reached 50 feet, their shapes dwindling into the darkness beyond the compound lights, their silhouettes merging with the entity's shadow, a final image etched into my mind. I crawled toward the barracks, my hands scraping the frozen ground, blood streaming from my nose, the warm trickle a stark contrast to the cold, the roar deafening my senses, a wall of sound that drowned out my own heartbeat. Soldiers stumbled around me, the formation dissolving into a scramble for survival, their figures blurred by the shaking earth, their cries lost in the chaos. Mitchell stood, legs braced wide, staring upward, his face a mask of determination as a blinding white light erupted, turning night to day with an intensity that seared my retinas. The heat followed, a wave of thermal energy that melted the synthetic fibers of my gear, the concrete burning beneath my hands, the pain a searing brand on my palms. Screams pierced the air, a chorus of agony from soldiers caught in the open, as buildings collapsed, their structures failing under forces no human engineering had ever been designed to withstand. The crash of timber and metal a requiem for our lost order. Consciousness slipped away, my vision fading to black, the last sensation the burning ground against my cheek. I awoke to the sterile scent of antiseptic mingled with the acrid tang of burned fabric, a cocktail of survival and loss that filled my lungs with each shallow breath. The soft bed beneath me felt alien after the Arctic's unyielding hardness, the warm room a stark contrast to the frozen night, my limbs heavy as if weighted by the memories I couldn't escape, each movement a reminder of the ordeal etched into my flesh. Dr. Collins, a green-eyed physician with auburn hair pulled back into a tight bun, stood beside me, her white coat a beacon of professionalism tinged with a kindness that seemed out of place in this sterile environment. "Easy there," she said as I winced, pain shooting through my torso and down my cast-encased left arm, the plaster a rigid cage that immobilized my fractures. "You've been through quite an ordeal." I had been unconscious for 3 weeks at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, she explained, her voice a steady cadence as she consulted her clipboard, the rustle of paper a faint underscore to her words. My body bore second and third-degree burns across 30% of its surface, the skin tight and raw, a patchwork of red and blistered flesh that stretched from my chest to my thighs, my left arm broken in 2 places, the radius and ulna, stabilized but aching with every heartbeat. Mitchell was dead, his steady presence extinguished, 23 soldiers lost to the chaos, their names a litany of ghosts that haunted my waking thoughts, 14 survivors scattered across hospital beds like broken relics. Daniel and Kyle were missing, presumed dead in the official reports, but I knew they had been taken, their screams echoing in my mind, a sound that replayed in the silence of my recovery. The official story, catastrophic equipment failure, felt like a lie carved into stone, a narrative I was forced to parrot during the debriefings that followed, each question a probe into the edges of my memory, each answer a step deeper into the cover-up. Debriefings began on my 5th day awake, a parade of officers with rehearsed questions and unreadable faces. The first, a colonel whose name I didn't catch, wore a dress uniform that gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a digital recorder in hand, his voice a monotone as he asked me to walk through the events of that night. I remember the alarm going off. I told him, my voice a croak from disuse, Captain Mitchell ordering us to assemble outside. Then there was some kind of explosion. "What can you tell me about the moments leading up to the explosion?" he asked, his pen poised over a tablet, his eyes fixed on mine with a scrutiny that made my skin crawl. "We were in formation, it was cold. Then everything went white and I don't remember anything else until I woke up here," I said, the words tasting of ash, a carefully curated lie that omitted the entity, the buzzing, the assent of my comrades. He made notes, nodding along, but his questions felt like a checklist, a confirmation of a story already written, not a search for truth. When I mentioned Daniel and Kyle specifically, He noted their names with a perfunctory scribble, but didn't press for details about their disappearance. A silence that spoke volumes. The second debriefing, 2 days later, was conducted by a major from intelligence, her uniform crisp, her questions more pointed, her notebook a battleground of precision. "Did you observe any unusual atmospheric conditions that night?" she asked, her pen hovering. "It was clear," I said. "Cold but clear, the memory of that starlit void flashing behind my eyes. Any equipment malfunctions prior to the incident?" "Not that I noticed," I replied, the lie growing smoother with each repetition. "Did any personnel exhibit unusual behavior or make statements that might indicate foreknowledge of the equipment failure?" That question made me pause, the implication of premeditation a thread I hadn't considered, but I shook my head. "No," I said. "Everyone seemed surprised by the emergency assembly." She wrote extensively, her strokes deliberate, but like the Colonel, she seemed more interested in confirming a narrative than uncovering new ground, her gaze a mirror of controlled curiosity. The third meeting, a week later, was different, conducted by a man who offered no introduction, no rank, his civilian clothes, dark suit, polished shoes, a stark contrast to the military precision around him. His voice carried an authority that outranked the others, a quiet power that filled the room, his eyes a pale blue that seemed to pierce through my defenses. "In your opinion, Sergeant Anderson, what caused the explosion?" he asked, his tone deceptively casual, his hands clasped on his lap. "I don't know," I said. "Some kind of equipment failure, I assume," the words a shield against the truth. "Have you discussed the incident with any of the other survivors?" "No, I haven't seen any of them," I replied, the isolation a fresh wound. "Good," he said. "For security reasons, we're keeping survivor accounts separate during the investigation, you understand." I understood they were ensuring our stories aligned, a web of silence woven to trap us. "Is there anything else you think we should know about that night? Anything at all that might help us understand what went wrong?" I looked into his eyes and saw something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't curiosity or concern for prevention, but a test, a probe to see if I would deviate from the script. "No," I said. "I've told you everything I remember," the lie a stone in my throat. He closed his notebook, stood, and left with a nod. "Excellent. Your cooperation is appreciated, Sergeant. This incident is classified at the highest levels. Discussion with unauthorized personnel is strictly prohibited." Richard Black came 2 days later, his black suit absorbing the light, his presence a shadow that lingered. He sat, his pale eyes studying me, and delivered an ultimatum. Silence or death, backed by photographs of silenced witnesses, newspaper clippings of suicides and accidents, a grim gallery of consequence. My survival hinged on eternal discretion, a burden that followed me home. Discharged with a 60% disability rating, I returned to Denver, my parents' worried faces a constant reminder of the lies I lived, panic attacks plaguing me, crowds triggering memories, aircraft overhead mimicking the entity's hum. Therapy offered no relief. The truth was too classified to share. Isolation beckoned, and I retreated to a Montana cabin, building a fortress of surveillance to monitor the skies. 15 years passed, marked by unexplained aircraft and government watchers. Research into UFO encounters revealed a pattern. My experience was one of many. The weight of silence crushed me, and in 2020, I began writing, mailing 27 copies of my testimony to journalists, researchers, and family. Armed and prepared, I awaited the consequences, dialing Richard's number to break the silence. The truth, at last, would outlive me. Have you ever felt the pull of a secret too vast to contain? Or wondered if you could face the unknown lurking beyond the stars? This tale might be for you if you dare to peer into the abyss.